From the set of the spring play called The Diary of Anne Frank here in the Patricia Lindley Center for the Performing Arts, welcome to another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes. Today's show is being brought to you by the Farm and Home Hardware Store located at 120 South Main Street in downtown Wellington. Today we are highlighting the spring play called The Diary of Anne Frank, put on by the Wellington High School Drama Club and the Wellington Community Theater. The Diary of Anne Frank. The play takes place during World War II, during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. The book was first published on June 25th, 1947, and was published in English in 1952. The Diary of Anne Frank is also often referred to as the Diary of a Young Girl. The book of the writings is from the Dutch language diary kept by Anne Frank when she was hiding with her family for 2 years during the Nazi occupation, as I said, of the Netherlands. The family was apprehended in 1944, and Anne Frank died in 1945 in a concentration camp of typhus. Her diary was retrieved and given to her father, the only survivor of the family after the war was over. The Diary of Anne Frank was turned into a play in 1955 and turned into a movie in 1959. To talk about the background of the play and the play itself, we have three people two of which should need no introduction. In the middle, we have Mr. Dave Conklin, teacher at the school, and also the director of the play. To my immediate right, we have Dottie Cianciola. She's the manager of the Lindle Center. And on the far right-hand side down there, we have Mr. Dave McDaniel. He is one of the actors in the play, so welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
My first question goes to you, Mr. Conklin. The Lindle Center has become, I would say, the preeminent theater here in the region. Why is it so important to the community itself?
Well, Wellington's never had a theater like this. With the technology and the seating capacity, we can put on Broadway-level productions, which we aspire to. And we have a robust adult theater program going, as well as that for the high school kids. So we're making it more and more vital for the community. Mm-hmm.
Dottie, we've already talked about CTE itself on a previous dialogue. How is CTE now put into this particular play, not only on the stage here, but behind the scenes?
Okay, well, different classes within the CTE theater program have participated. The stagecraft and set design classes, they made the backdrop pieces and the set walls. They're responsible for assisting the prop master Linda Hatton, with the staging of the props throughout the week for the tech rehearsals and the show itself. And then digital media, they're out here today filming this production, digital of the class. Also, Intro to Theater, they've done sound effects for the show. Costuming, they made the Star of David badges that are worn by the actors for the play.
Yeah. Well, Mr. McDaniel, you're obviously not an actor by profession. What did you do in your previous life?
I was a corporate accountant for the Village Market here in town and the other 7 stores in the county.
Back to you, Mr. Conklin. Explain the directorial process, specifically having to do with this play.
Well, determining that we were going to do it back last summer, and then it's, getting the auditions, determining who's a good fit for each character, table reads, and then the weeks and probably about 3 months worth of putting the play together and all the nuances and technology, both lighting and audio, and acting and character interp that goes into making this, honoring this work of art.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a work of art. Well, Dottie, obviously we know you're the manager of the Lindley Center, but you have a new job this year. And how does this all coordinate? How did you get so interested in working behind the scenes, not only here in the Lindley Center, but in this play?
Well, I've always been interested in the technical aspect of theater and technical components in general. I started out my career, I worked for Channel 3 News for several years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that kind of whet my appetite for what would lead to this. I like working with the students a lot. I like all the things involved that we do up in our control booth. The sound, the lighting, the sound when it works properly, that kind of thing. So it's been a wonderful experience. Actually, this has been the best job of my lifetime.
Just out of mere curiosity, on camera or off camera for Channel 3?
Off camera.
Off camera.
Mainly.
Mr. McDaniel, obviously we've already talked about the fact you're not an actor by profession. What piqued your interest in acting?
When my son was in high school, he was in drama, and I really enjoyed it. And soon after that, they filmed The Avengers in Cleveland, and I went for the casting call, and I was an extra, so got the taste and love it now.
Well, finally, Mr. Conklin, you've directed scores of plays for the community theater as well as the drama club. Is there something different about this play? You already talked about the fact that it's a very famous play and movie. So what is different about the directorial process of this play compared to the other scores of plays that you've been in?
Well, can't ignore what's going on in Gaza right now with Israel and the relevance there and the complication of the whole thing.
Which we will be bringing up after the commercial today.
And so that's what makes this, historically it has its place, has its meanings in that, but now it's tied to the current events that are going on now, so it's very significant.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when we come back after this message, we'll be talking specifically about the play that's going to take place in just a few days here in the Lindle Center. This is Dialogue with the Dukes.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us today as we introduce you to our exceptional range of farm and home equipment. Our mission is to provide you with the highest quality tools and machinery that will help you achieve the most out of your agricultural and residential projects. So, visit us at 120 S Main Street, Wellington, Ohio, 44090, and call us at 440-647-4659.
We're back. If you need top-notch tools or expert advice, go to the Farm and Home hardware store located once again on 120 South Main Street in downtown Wellington. We've been talking with Mr. Dave Conklin, Ms. Dottie Cianciola, and Mr. Dave McDaniel about the play that's going to take place, the spring play that's going to take place in just a few days here in the Lindle Center. Now we want to talk specifically about the play itself. So, Mr. Conklin, give us a brief synopsis of the play itself.
Yeah, it's World War II. The Franks, the Van Dons, and Mr. Dussel have to go into hiding as Jews because the Nazis are looking for them. And so they're able to go into an annex above Otto Frank's work business, and they make it for a year and a half before they're eventually found out.
Well, Dottie, how do you mesh? And we've already talked about the CTE program and so on, but how do you mesh and teach the students not only on the stage itself, but up there in the control booth itself, meshing together to make the whole thing come together?
Well, it's a process of time. It involves them attending a lot of the rehearsals and then seeing from that what needs to be done regarding whatever their particular job is, lighting, sound, projection, whatever it may be. And then once they learn how to operate the equipment, they're actually quite good at adapting to the play itself and following the directions of the directors of the play. So it all works together.
Now, when the rehearsals take place, okay? Obviously, Mr. Conklin's on stage with all the actors,
Right.
and I assume you're up in the control booth
Yeah.
working with that. Now, when the rehearsals are going on, how are you actually teaching the students up there, the people running the control booth, to compare not only what's going on the stage, but what they have to do themselves?
Well, right now, the crew that I have, they're knowledgeable about what their job entails, and they pretty much know what it is that they need to do. And then I communicate with the director, and then he'll tell us specifically what he wants as far as lighting goes, if there's certain sound effects, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then we collaborate. It's a very
great.
team-oriented kind of thing, so that we all work together.
So there's a lot of
Come up with-
interaction going on between what Mr. Conklin's doing on stage with the actors and what's going on up there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, Mr. McDaniel, what roles have you played in the past, and how do they compare to Mr. Dussel in this particular play?
Okay. Well, I've been the adult Ralph in The Christmas Story, Judge Hathorne in Crucible, Principal in Footloose, and boy, there's just so many other ones I don't recall right now. But compared to Mr. Dussel, this is completely different. He's very different. He's a loner. He comes into the play late, so he doesn't feel like he's a part of the group that's already there.
Exactly. Well, Mr. Conklin, could you explain some of the other main characters in this play, besides Mr. Dussel?
Yeah, I mean, Otto and Edith Frank are Anne and her sister Margaret's mom and dad. And then the Von Dons are, Mr. Von Don helped Otto out when he got to the Netherlands. He helped him assimilate into Netherlands culture. And he and his wife and their son Peter, they're also part of the group. And then Meep and Crawler, Mr. Crawler, are two employees of Otto Frank who help bring food and news from the outside. And they also catch wind of Dussel needing a place, and so they get him in there as well.
Without going into the play too much, how are things like, because I thought of this myself, how are things like food and news and all that, how is that done for a year and a half under the noses, literally, of the Nazis?
Well, the food's ration. It's a lot of potatoes and kale and some beans. And
what's wrong with that?
yeah, morning, noon, and night for a year and a half. I suppose you get a little tired of it after a while.
Make it
And again, it's they had a system where they were invisible from 8 to 5 or 6 all day long, and so they were very clever in Meep and Crawler in delivering and communicating, and so they were able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dottie, we've already talked about the coordination involved. Now, there's things like costumes and things like that, Star of David, things like that have to be made specifically for this play, if you could talk about that.
Right. In particular, the Star of David is something that the Intro to Theater class participated in making that, and we went over the history, and I'd like to just share a little bit about that, read what I've found out. So at that time, the German government made it a mandatory policy that all Jewish people were required to wear the badges in conquered territories. Mm-hmm. That started around 1940. The psychological tactic aimed at isolating and dehumanizing the Jewish people, mm-hmm. directly marking them as different to everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah.
And so that allowed for easier facilitation of their separation from society and mm-hmm. the ghettoization that resulted, mm-hmm. which ultimately led to the deportation and murder of 6 million Jews. Those who failed to wear the star badge risked severe punishment, including death by shooting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've already talked about, Mr. McDaniel, you've already talked about the fact that your character, Mr. Dussel, is something completely different from other things in the past that you've done. How did you actually prepare for Mr. Dussel?
First, I got an impression of him from reading the script. Mm-hmm. And then after we started blocking and acting it, I got a different impression of him. And then I did some research on the actual person. And that sort of gave me an idea, too, of what he was about.
As we wind down here, I want to talk to you, Mr. Conklin, about the challenges presented in presenting this particular play. And you already talked a little bit in the first segment about real-world events that are going on. What are the challenges, and what can we learn from this particular play? As you said, very, very historical play.
Yeah, that humanity transcends generations, and so does inhumanity. And that it was purely coincidental that what happened currently, what's going on between Israel and Palestine, mm-hmm. And Hamas, that whole horrible situation was purely coincidental. And so our putting this on is not to promote one interpretation of that event or to use this as any sort of justification for the inhumanity that we see happening over there. But it's unavoidable that this might be connected in that way. And so in paying attention to what's going on, I've gleaned from people who are either directly involved or closer to it, with certain interpretations of the behavior that is happening now that is identical to back in World War II. It's just the roles, the groups involved are different, but it's the same inhumanity. You hear dehumanization in order for certain courses of action to take place. You must dehumanize those whom you consider the enemy. I hear that a lot. And then I heard one striking quote was, and it kind of brought this in, past victimization does not justify victimizing now. And that theme seemed to resonate also. So yeah, it's, that's what separates this play, this work from all the others have done, the vital relevance that's happening now.
Well, final question, Dottie.
Yes.
Tell us what, when, where, cost, and so on.
Okay, the show takes place right here in the Patricia Lindle Center. And it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of this week, March 7th, 8th, and 9th. Adult tickets are $11. Senior citizens and student tickets are only $6.
Very good.
Right up.
We hope you've enjoyed today's particular program, and we'll be back again very soon with another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes.